Oh, before that, it was 13.
At this time, I'd like to call the Monday, May 13th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting to order. That brings us to the first item on the agenda, which is roll call. Daniels?
Here.
Gesme? Here. Emma? Derek Lindell? Here. Glenn Lindell?
Here.
Pid here. And Witt.
Here.
That brings us to the next item, which is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion by Derek Lindell and a second by Mr. Gesme. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes of the April 8th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion by Derek Lindell and a second by Mr. Witt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Please approach the microphone and before speaking, give your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone here for something other than the public hearing for the rezoning? Seeing none, that brings us to number 6, which is the public hearing. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for rezoning Hardwood Estate lots.
So I'll just give a brief overview and then we can have the public come up. Mr. Mike Kulhanek, who was here at the April meeting, has brought us a request to rezone 4 lots in the Hardwood Estates addition in Cannon Falls, which is just south of Highway 19 and the schools. It's proposed that if these were to be rezoned, that townhomes, which would be between 3 and 4 units per building, would be constructed. In your packets, there was a rough sketch of what he is proposing. That layout will probably change because it wasn't quite meeting some of the setbacks and everything, but that was just to give you a rough idea of the layout he was thinking. Also in your packets was an example of some homes that are already constructed by Mr. Kulhanek's engineering firm and design firm. Some photos of those that he is going for that type of look for his units. So tonight we are just talking about the rezoning, not necessarily the layout of the units or anything like that. If this is rezoned to R4, which is high density residential, townhomes would be a permitted use, so he would not have to come back here to get approval for them. So I guess right now I'll open it up to the public. If anybody wants to come up and share their thoughts with the Planning Commission, now would be the time.
Anybody? We got a brave soul. Welcome.
Is this microphone on, or?
Is the green light on?
He does it?
You just push that button on the bottom there.
Yeah.
Nope, that's a trap door, the other one.
Oh, this
There you
one?
go.
On?
There you
We're
go.
on.
Okay, well, I'm Mike Cohen, and the address is 30360 72nd Avenue Way. So my wife and I live in the house on the Lot 5 of Hardwood Estates. So I guess before I make any comment, I'm not really sure what really is this gonna look like? Is this a 2-story flat twin home, or it sounds like a...
Could have shared this. Didn't think of it. Okay, so what he's proposing
Oh.
right now, this is very, very preliminary. is, let's see if I can get it all on there. Yes. At the north here, the units would all be facing each other. So Highway 19 is right up here, Highway 19. There would be 4 units here facing each other, and then 3 units down here facing each other. Like I said,
So,
this is very
8
preliminary.
14.
14
14,
units?
yes.
Oh, so
And
that is
would be,
multiple. 2-story
yes.
or 1-story?
2-story. That 14 units is going to be the maximum he can do due to our restraints on the square footage of your lots with how many units you have. So you have to have 4,000 square feet of lot per unit. So right now, these are at about 57,000 square feet, and the units are adding up to 56,000. So he couldn't add any more units than the
So
14
that's
that
all
are
on 1 acre of land?
Yes, all on those 4 lots that are there. And then
Okay.
this is the picture I was referring to in my opening, what we are proposing that they would look like.
So our lot 5 would be looking at the back of the building?
Yes, at the, right now, at the back of a 3-unit structure.
Your side yard would meet that side yard, that backyard.
Okay, a couple of questions, and I'll just want to make a comment. So, right now, this is, the zoning is just for these 4 lots, or all 130? The drawing has like 130 single-home lot plotted out.
Yeah, this is actually just for these 4 lots, correct, Sam?
Correct.
So this would just be bringing in some townhouses to
Okay.
that area. And at this time, those aren't allowed because it's zoned as single family.
Is it, it's an R2 or R1? I'm not sure what
R2.
the definition is.
R2 right now.
Yep, R2 is what it's zoned right now.
What is the definition of an R2?
Single family, which would be one family then per
Okay.
lot.
So not twin homes either?
Right. Yep, that's the purpose of the meeting.
Okay, well, my opinion anyway, when we bought the house, we saw it was zoned for, we didn't know if it was R1 or 2 or whatever the zoning was. But it appeared to us as the zoning was for all, like 130 single-family homes, and we are a single-family home. And my wife and I would like to keep it single-family homes. Our concern is, well, these will not be owned, right? They'll be rented? And even if they are owned, well, go ahead.
It's proposed that they would most likely be sold, not rented,
Sold to an owner.
to an owner.
To an owner.
Correct.
With a restriction on renting?
Canyon Falls does not have any restrictions on rental units.
Well, our concern is that it would be turned over to renting, and where our experience, we came from townhomes up in the city, and once they were rented, there was trouble. There was noisy, lack of concern for the property. There was police called out for different things. So we really don't, my wife, Linda and I do not want to see that rezoned as our request.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's it. Thank you.
Is that, okay.
Do we have any other public input on this? Anyone else have something they'd like to say?
Yeah, but they're 2 stories, one. We don't want 3 buildings right next door to us. Maybe 14 units. 14. 4 and 3 and 3.
Questions?
If no one else has anything to say, I'll go ahead and close this public. Oh, we got somebody else.
Good evening. I'm Justin Sieben, live at 30379 72nd Ave Way. One of the reasons we also moved down here was to get away from the townhomes. We lived next door to many of them. And they started out where they sold them to individual owners, and within 5 years, they're all being rented out. And we had similar incidences where cops were being called, places went to trash, and they weren't being taken care of. I respect the neighborhood. It's a good-looking neighborhood. I want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do one more call. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? At this time, I'd like to close the public hearing for rezoning Hardwood Estate lots. And that brings us to discussion item, Resolution 2019-4, rezoning Hardwood Estate lots.
If there's anything the commissioners would like to discuss amongst yourselves?
I would like to, at our last meeting, you stated that they're mostly going to be rentals, but now Sam said they're going to be sold. Is that correct? So that's changed?
You can come up to the mic, that's fine.
Well, because it's a concept, some of the units could be sold or rented. So it's a matter of when you're developing, you have to see what the community wants and desires. And there's a lot of requests for rentals. People don't want to own as much anymore. So as we were discussing, there would be an option of selling some of the units, but ultimately they could be rented as well. So,
But, yeah, when you first approached us, it was pretty much going to be mostly rentals, because you said
Yes.
that's
correct.
what
And that is still the case. There may be an option to sell them. Condominium association would have to be set up in that case and things. So that's part of the ongoing analysis on what's best and what the community wants.
Who'd take care of it then if you start renting them out and it's like they say they kind of trash them and it just gets to be a lot of problems there. So do you watch over and kind of make sure they're not wrecking the places or whatever if you rent them out or?
Well, as we were discussing at the last meeting, I utilize a firm called Renters Warehouse, and there's strict controls on, so I'm not sure what other people have experienced, but they're a professional management company, and all of the clauses and requirements are in there to maintain. There's large deposits. These townhomes are upscale townhomes in comparison to townhomes out there, so the people that would be renting would be paying a fair rental. So I can't say that people wouldn't neglect things because I don't know, but all the things would be put in place to make sure that, and as I was stating, this is an investment for me for retirement, so I want to make sure that they're maintained, and they always would be according to code and regulation. So I can't speak to people who don't maintain their townhomes, but that's not, my intent is to make sure that they're maintained and professionally managed. Especially, the location, it's beautiful, it's Cannon Falls, so it's maybe different than other places.
Sam, do you know in the city ordinances, is there any kind of requirement for a city inspection annually for rental properties?
There's not. The city of Cannon Falls does not have any type of rental ordinance that it enforces.
Does Renters Warehouse have, or is there a way if say you got some bad owners or there was a lot of problems, is there a way you can get rid of them legally, or how would all that work?
Sure. So when people sign rental agreements, they say that they'll maintain, and so if they don't, then it's just like any other process where they would be evicted.
Okay. And I'm assuming they do background checks and references and all
Yes.
that? Yep, okay.
Well, and all of that part is actually managed then by Renters Warehouse.
Yes.
They do even the collection of the rents and.
Everything, yeah.
Yep. Making it a little simpler.
Yes, I mean, it does cost money, but it's well worth it. I mean, to
Right.
make sure that everybody is, happy and comfortable. And people know what they're getting into as well when they're renting, when they're signing contracts.
Right.
Do they have any type of tip line or anything, like say one of the neighbors had a concern about something going on there that they could contact Renters Warehouse to look into it? Like maybe not something illegal, but if they're letting the house go to heck, or, you know what I'm saying? Is there a way the neighbors could contact you or Renters Warehouse
Well,
down the
the
line?
neighbors would contact me, so if everything gets approved, then they'll know exactly how to get a hold of me. We already discussed where I live.
Oh, okay.
So if there was anything like that, I would
Up to
hope
your
they
house.
would call and text like right away, because, and the other reason too, I may have mentioned this on the initial, the reason for Cannon Falls is proximity to where I live, so I can check on them regularly. And I'm hoping to move to one of the units as well in the future, so, I'm not guaranteeing that I can, because I have a lot of, I'm taking care of my father full-time with Alzheimer's, so, I don't know what the future will bring, but anyway, so that's what I have with all of the other rental properties, is the neighbors know me, and
Okay.
I just come and check. I trim things. Even though I hire out for some things, I always like to check on things too.
Justin, can I get your address again?
30379 72nd Avenue Way.
Whose house did it used to be?
Smith.
Okay,
I think everybody knows that.
that makes it easier.
Could I ask just a clarification of Mike while he's here? That Mike would be the owner developer initially, and perhaps you would sell one or more of those units off, correct?
Perhaps,
Depending on the
yes.
market. If, maybe it's something to consider here, because I think the relationship has been with Mike here and the uncertainty of who the future owner or owners might be. Would it be feasible for you, if this project goes ahead, to have either an association that would regulate future sales so that you would always be the owner? You could sell a unit, but that new owner couldn't rent it, that you would always control the rental of these units? Is that a possibility? So that if this is approved, that the city has a single contact you for rental, rather than you sell us each a townhouse and we all decide to rent ourselves? Is that a possibility to have you stay in as kind of the landlord of any unit that's being rented as opposed to someone else? Is that possible?
That's an option, but the whole idea is that the idea I was bringing forward was to own the whole community. And then there was a secondary idea of potentially selling a unit or two. In that case, if I did, then a condo association would have to be set up, and I would be the leader of that
The majority
association.
own-
Yeah,
right. So you would stay in the position of regulating any future rental of a unit that you don't own?
correct.
That's, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're comfortable in doing that, I think that would be a more comfortable conversation for us to have, that you would still be the contact of any rental unit as the majority owner, if you choose to do that. I just wanted that clarification.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know offhand the average length of tenancy for a renter in your
So
units?
in this type of environment, it would probably be 2 to 5 years, and maybe longer. Because they're nicer units, they'll be longer term, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm sure that would vary by the city too, and since Cannon Falls is a little further away from the metro.
It varies, but 2 and 3 bedrooms generally are longer term, just in general. 1 year is generally efficiency apartments or things like that.
Well, anybody else have any questions for Mike, or?
Would they be fenced on the south and north end?
This is,
The north and the south has a fence already. The neighbors have a fence.
Oh, there is, okay.
But depending on how it lays, you know,
yeah.
the front is about the same distance as the existing neighbor's home. So we were just talking about their fence, and they have a very nice new fence they just built a year or so ago.
Okay.
Otherwise, I thank everyone for their help, especially the city and the commissioner's time, and all the neighbors for coming in. It's good to hear, and I wish I could have met them earlier, but it's just kind of is as it is, so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Do we have any other discussion on the rezoning resolution?
Me, myself, I'm not real excited about the concept. I think the density myself is too high. I don't think the neighbors expect to want to live next to whatever you want to call it. It looks going to look like an apartment, if you ask me. So once we rezone it, that's it. He doesn't need to come back, and as long as the square footage is within the guidelines, we're all set. So I'm a little wary.
Well, I do think one of our goals this year was to get more housing, especially affordable housing. This is near the school, so being 2 3-bedroom homes, perfect for families of 1 or 2 kids. They can walk across the street to school. I just think if our goal is to get more housing, but we have lots that have sat empty for however many years, and we're just going to turn everybody down, it's not going to make people want to come develop here if they think it's not worth their time. And I don't live in the neighborhood, but right now, what is it, 4 houses on 72? So, and it's just a lot of dirt and a big empty field, so it may not be the perfect thing, but I think it would be okay to me.
Yes, I actually kind of agree with Derek that having 2 and 3 bedroom units that close to the schools is probably actually a pretty good idea, I guess. You know, it'd be a pretty good chance that a lot of those folks would have kids, and so they'd be nice and close to the schools. It's almost too bad there wasn't a tunnel under 19.
It is.
A tunnel?
I think so.
Is there?
I think by the elementary. Probably not supposed to go through there, but probably could.
Well, you probably could.
What's the entire platted area? How many homes are platted for that entire area?
Currently, none.
None.
Currently, just those 6 lots is all that's been planned. So anybody could come along at this point and buy the acreage that's in the farm field right now and design it any way they wanted to.
There's no plat there at all?
No, there's a proposed plat from several years ago that had single-family, 2-family, and townhouse units, but that isn't locked in to this property at all.
So there was some multifamily already proposed in the general vicinity.
Kind of proposed. Dave can probably give some.
I hate to be the historian to Sam, tell you how much older I am than Sam, but that's why I'm here tonight, because this development for the 44 acres, you've got Hardwood Estates plat in front of you with just these 6 lots, these 4 here plus 2 others, lot 5 that the gentleman here who owns, and then the 6th lot. not originally, the last project that came to the city had 121 single-family lots spread throughout that whole Hardwood Estates. That plat was never filed, never finally approved. It went away, so there is no development plan that's been approved by the city beyond these 6 lots, the 4 of which are at issue here tonight. So there's no plan for beyond these 6 lots right now. But again, the proposal that did come to the city, even before I got here, was for 121 single-family, all detached homes. That was the plan, but it was never approved, never filed. So here, what I wanted to mention maybe to Steve's comment is on the east side over here, this is the rear yard of these 4 lots that are there today. And with a rezoning to the R4, there's a 25-foot minimum setback along that east line. These are shown at 15 feet here. If this plan, if it's rezoned and Mike brings this plan back to you, there's going to have to be a corresponding application for a variance. So you're going to see Mike before you again if he actually were to submit this actual plan. So I think, you know, the variance is a little bit of a complication because it would be self-created, and under state law, that's a no-no. So I think Mike's going to have to relook at his plan to this one that's proposed because of the 25-foot setback along that east line. So there's either going to be fewer units, or the units are going to have to be redesigned, or there's going to have to be an application to the Planning Commission and Council for a variance, and this would be a tough one to approve, I think. So I anticipate that if this rezoning goes ahead, that Mike's going to go back to the drawing board and have to make some adjustments to this plan, at least along the east side. On the west side, we have a 30-foot setback here, and the ones on the north meet it, but down here it's close. So there's going to have to be some adjustments even on the west side in the event the R4 zoning goes ahead. So I think there's still some design requirements that are going to have to be dealt with by the applicant in order to meet the R4 zoning if this property is rezoned. So I think there's a chance you would see a revised plan if it doesn't conform to the R4, if that goes ahead. But again, I just want to comment mainly for Sam's benefit too, because there is some history here. I just wanted to be aware that beyond these 6 lots, of which the 4 you're looking at tonight, there's nothing been approved for that. It's vacant land. If someone's going to develop it, they're going to have to bring in a plat to the Planning Commission, public hearing, zoning, et cetera, for any land beyond these that could be proposed for development in the future. Any questions on the history? Good? Okay.
So there's no requirements for ponding of all the hard surface area at this point?
There actually is a pond area designated out here, and Glen Mulvihill, before even the first home was built here, did do a grading plan that was approved by the city. So there will be drainage from this site. There will be additional drainage. Now we'd have to look at it if this were actually the plan, or if there's a plan other than this, we would still look at it. But right now, there's accommodations for drainage on the properties and then over into this area. Kind of a work in process, I would say.
Right.
So really, Dave, what you're saying is that the single-family home next door actually would gain more green space with a multi-family type design as opposed to just another single family, because isn't the single family a much smaller side yard setback?
These are 75-foot platted lots, these 3, and I think the one up here is 80 feet or so, something like that. So I guess, Dan, what I would say, if there's a single-family home here, a single-family home here, a single-family home here, and a single-family home here, there would be a lot more green space on the property next to the existing home. Here, there's going to be more with 14 units, 13 units, 12 units. There's a greater density than 4 single-family detached.
Right.
So I would say because of that and because of the, the parking and the access, there's actually going to be more impervious surface with a multifamily than there would be green space with a single-family detached.
No, I was talking more in regards to the side yard setback, because the setbacks are lower for single family. You can build, I've been in neighborhoods where there's maybe 10 feet between the neighbor's house. I bet.
Right. I don't remember, Sam, is it 10 or 15 feet still on here if it was a single family?
Oh boy, you're quizzing me here.
Yeah. I'd say it's 10 or 15
No
feet.
pressure.
15, and if it's the garage side, if it was an attached garage, I believe that can be 10 feet.
Right. And 5 feet for detached. So if they had a detached garage here, single-family home with a detached garage, we could go as close as 5 feet. So that is your point.
Yeah,
15 feet here is probably
Yeah.
5 feet more than a single-family home could build if the lot stayed as it is. I think it's 10 feet on the side.
Right.
So you're right. I get your question now, sorry.
Yeah, I just meant there'd actually be
There could be.
more room between their yard and the next structure.
Right.
Can I ask a question here? As long as you're up here.
Go ahead.
Just so I can clarify, so right here, from our building to the property line is 10 feet.
Right.
So this could be only 5 feet from the property line to the building?
This is 15 now. With this plan, that's 15.
Oh, it's 15.
So a single-family home, I think, could go 10.
Oh, okay.
And if it was a detached garage, it could go 5.
If it was a single-family home.
Single-family home, correct. Yep,
But this would be 15.
15, yep.
Okay.
15 is under the R4, 15 is the requirement for the side yard. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So it sounds like the setbacks would be the trouble with the proposed number of units, so that's something we'd have to
Yes.
kind of deal with. So either the units need to be smaller or fewer.
Correct.
Anyone else have anything on the proposed?
I just want to say I can definitely appreciate the current residents' concerns about these going in. I'm not sure how I would feel if I lived out there. I think that one thing that does differentiate this from like the big suburbs in the metro are townhouses down here aren't a dime a dozen. There aren't 100 in development. And I think these are going to be more, like you said, I would hope they would be more upscale, looking for larger families that want to settle for a while. So it's definitely not an easy decision. Yeah, I would say we're all definitely taking your concerns to heart here as well.
I have one more question. So if this is zoned in R4, right now he's talking about two-story, but if, in that, under that zoning description, how high could you go if plans change? Got to go up to 4 stories?
35.
There are height restrictions for like townhouses. R4 in Cannon Falls, I believe 3 stories is the tallest you could go. I think the height restriction is 35 feet. I have not read our ordinance in a little while. I work for the Goodhue County now, so apologies
Right now
for
it's
everything I get wrong.
Change to higher.
It possibly could. That would be something that if the applicant brought in a building permit application for say an apartment building that's 4 or 5 stories tall, the city still has the ability to say, it's too tall, it doesn't meet the setbacks, this isn't what you told us you were going to do. So there would still be some checking going on there with that for sure.
Okay, thanks.
You are welcome.
Mr. Kulhanik, do you have anything that's greater than 2 stories now? Okay.
So, and really, they'd be 2-story with a basement, or some may have on slab on grade.
Okay.
And also, just, I guess to mention, so this is a concept and.
Can you come up to the mic?
Yes. Just to kind of reiterate, this is a concept, and so I'll be developing it within all the guidelines. So this was, as I had promised, I'd bring you back concepts and pictures, but it's a quite task in a month to get surveyors and engineers to bring that together quickly. So this is the concept that we're working with, and it will be tweaked because I'm not planning on coming back for a variance because, as he said, it would be self-imposed, and that's kind of illogical at this point. So this is concept, and we'll be working to make it work with all of the rules that we have in place that exist.
Do you have the option out to purchase these currently if we were to pass this?
Pardon?
Do you have like a contract to purchase these from the owner, or do you
Yes.
own them now? You do have a
Yeah,
contract?
so it's contingent on your approval.
Yeah, okay.
So if they don't.
Somebody can't snoop in and.
Right, if they
tomorrow?
don't, then I won't buy them because it's not really feasible.
Okay.
And as I was mentioning at the first meeting, and neighbors weren't here, but this is the perfect location, as you had mentioned, for the multifamily with the schools and the open space as it is now. It'll be developed in the future, but it's a beautiful area. So I think it's most advantageous for the community to take advantage of the area with this type of housing for the school location and things like that.
Anyone else have anything to add? I don't know. I definitely think the idea of having multifamily lots near the school is actually a pretty decent idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of parents would probably like that. With 19 being as busy as it is, I don't know that they'd allow the kids to cross the street themselves unless they're up a certain age. But it is definitely geographically close to the school, so. Anybody else?
If there's nothing else, I guess we can take it to a vote.
Well, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-4.
And I will second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to Planning Commission member comments. Oop. Anybody have anything?
Has there been any talk about the rest of the stuff to the east of here?
No.
Anybody? No? Okay. All right.
What's this? It says something about they want to close 72.
So that was provided by Dave this afternoon. It's from 2014. It is when MnDOT did their last study for the last plat that was proposed at the area we were discussing tonight. They recommended the closing of 72nd Avenue Way in order to create another access onto Highway 19 if all of that acreage was developed, which is why you'll see on the plans and on the plat, Lot 1 has that kind of,
Oh, like a little cul-de-sac?
yeah, a little cul-de-sac that was planned. The plan initially was for that to become a cul-de-sac and for another access to the development to be brought in. Like I said, this is from 2014. The applicant, any future developers of this area, the city will all have to be back in contact with MnDOT once things change because they'll have different or the same opinions now in 2019.
Right, at the time, I believe the idea was to use Hardwood Way as the new access.
Correct.
But that was kind of contingent too on where that southeast collector was going to
Yep,
come
the
in.
connection. Yep. So it's been proposed in the past. Once again, my history may be wrong, but I did speak to someone from MnDOT today, and she said they had heard the access could have come from 71st Avenue, which is a block down from 72nd. It could have come from Hardwood Way, which was kind of contingent upon the access coming from County 24, or another access farther down into the development from Highway 19.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah, if there's nothing else, we can take a motion to adjourn and.
I got one more thing. Did I go on the record as opposing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that brings us to the last item then on the agenda, which is adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I've got a motion by Glenn Lundell
I'll second it.
and a second by Mr. Gesby. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the Monday, May 13th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.